The war was over, but the silence it left behind was heavier than the sound of battle ever was. Commander Talon Voss stood at the edge of the viewing deck, staring at the stars through the glass. The space station floated quietly above a silver gas giant, its rings sparkling in the artificial lights of the docking bays. Talon had seen 1,000 stars like these, 100 planets, and too many graves, but now, for the first time in years, he had no orders, no mission, no purpose. He was no longer a commander, just a man with scars and memories. Talon wore a gray coat with no rank. His tall, built frame made people step aside, but no one saluted him anymore. His arms were crossed, his jaw stiff, his eyes sharp. There was a strange stillness about him, like a machine that hadn't been shut off, just left running quietly in a dark corner. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. "You must be Commander Voss," said a calm voice. It was female, smooth, almost musical. He didn't turn around. "I was," he replied. "I'm Ambassador Elira of the Lumai delegation," she said. "I've been assigned as your reintegration officer." Now he turned. She was unlike anything he had ever seen on the battlefield. Tall and graceful, Elira had glowing silver eyes and skin like polished stone. Her hair floated slightly as if moved by an invisible current. The Lumai were one of the species that had fought against humanity in the war. Not their fiercest enemy, but no friend either. Talon didn't move. He just looked at her. "You're here to reintegrate me?" he asked. "Yes," Elira said, stepping closer. "Many humans are being guided back into civilian life. You were chosen for the station's program because of your unique history." Talon gave a small grunt. "You mean because I killed more enemies than most of your officers combined?" Elira flinched slightly but did not break eye contact. "I mean because you survived, and because the Council believes understanding you may help prevent future wars." "Understanding me?" he said. "Good luck with that." There was a long silence between them. Behind the glass, stars continued to shine. Ships came and went. The universe moved on, but Talon stood still. "Why did your people fight so hard?" Elira finally asked. Her voice was soft, not accusing. More curious than anything, Talon looked back at the stars. "We didn't fight for territory or power. We fought because we refused to be told when to kneel. But the Council offered peace before the end." He turned to her again, eyes cold. "Peace after surrender isn't peace. It's a cage with pretty walls." Elira nodded slowly as if she was trying to understand something that didn't quite fit into her way of thinking. "You still carry that mindset. Even now," Talon gave a slight smile. "A mindset like that doesn't switch off. It's not something you take off like a coat." They walked slowly through the hallway of the station side by side. Other species walked past. Traders, diplomats, mechanics, children, most of them giving Talon wary glances. He noticed. He always noticed. But he didn't react. "You're not what I expected," Elira said after a moment. "What did you expect?" he asked. "A monster," she said honestly. "A cold-blooded killer. And what do you see now?" She paused, looking at him carefully. "I don't know, you're quiet." "I've seen enough noise." They stopped near a small garden dome, a rare place of life on the station. Inside, green plants grew under artificial sunlight. A few children played near the edge, their laughter echoing faintly. Elira looked at them and then back at him. "Do you miss anything from the war?" Talon thought for a while. "Clarity," he said. "Back then, things were simple. Protect your own. Eliminate the threat. No lies, no politics. Just survival and loyalty." Elira was silent again. She realized he wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. But he was also not healed. "You say you're not a commander anymore," she said, "but you still carry yourself like one." "I was built to lead," Talon replied. "Built to protect." "You were not born a soldier?" she asked. "No," he said, "but I don't remember who I was before." Elira looked at him, this time with a new softness in her gaze. "Maybe this time you'll find out." Talon didn't reply. He simply turned back toward the stars. Far beyond them, the galaxy was moving into a new age of peace. Treaties were signed. Enemies shook hands. But in that silence, some wounds had not closed. Some warriors had not laid down their swords, and one of them stood on this station, lost in a sky full of ghosts. He didn't know if he could heal. He didn't know if he wanted to. All he knew was that he wasn't done yet, and peace was still a battlefield. The next few days passed quietly, but the silence between Talon and Elira was not empty. It was heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts and careful steps. They met every day at the same time, in the same place, the station's observation lounge. Illyra was always calm and polite. Talon was quiet and distant. She tried to understand him. He tried not to be understood. "You still wake up at 0400, she said one morning, sitting across from him with a cup of warm tea in her hands. "It's a habit," he replied. "Hard to sleep when you're used to alarms and gunfire. You don't have to keep living like you're still at war." Talon looked out the window, watching a cargo ship drift into docking. "Some things stay with you." She watched him carefully. He always kept his back to a wall. He noticed every sound, every movement. Even now, relaxed, he was scanning everything. She could see the soldier in every part of him, not just in his body, but in his soul. Later that day, Illyra brought him to a different part of the station, the lower sectors. It was less clean, less quiet. The air smelled of metal and grease. Traders, workers, and travelers moved quickly, minding their own business. "Why here?" Talon asked. "I thought you'd like to see how people live without uniforms or flags." "Just normal life," Talon didn't answer. He walked beside her, eyes always alert. As they passed a food market, a sudden commotion broke out. A scream, a shout, then crashing sounds. Talon moved without thinking. A group of thugs had cornered a merchant, shouting in a strange dialect. One of them raised a metal rod, ready to strike. Talon was there in seconds. He grabbed the attacker's arm mid-swing and twisted it until the rod dropped. The thug screamed in pain. The others turned toward him, surprised. "You don't want this fight," Talon said calmly. They laughed. One pulled a knife. Another reached for something under his coat. Talon stepped forward, fast as lightning. In 5 seconds, all 4 thugs were on the ground. Not dead, not bleeding, but in pain and unable to stand. Illyra stood at the edge, shocked. The merchant thanked Talon with wide eyes. Others nearby stared in silence. Some looked afraid. Some looked amazed. Talon helped the merchant stand, then turned and walked away. Without a word, Illyra followed him. "You could have killed them," she said once they were alone again. "I didn't, but you could have. I don't kill unless I have to." She looked at him with new eyes. "That's not what they say about you." "I don't care what they say." They walked in silence for a while. Then Illyra spoke again. "You didn't fight them because you were angry?" "No." "You did it to protect that man?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "So even without a war, you still protect?" "It's what I do." That night, Illyra watched old records of Talon's missions. Some were reports. Some were blurry footage from battlefields. She saw him carry wounded soldiers through fire. She saw him stand between civilians and enemy mechs. She saw him risk his life again and again, not for medals, but for others. He wasn't a monster. He was a shield. The next day, she brought him something small. A data crystal. "What's this?" he asked. "It's a collection of poems," she said. "Written by soldiers after the war." "I don't read poetry." "Maybe it's time you did." Talon didn't reply, but he didn't throw it away. That evening he read one. It was simple. It spoke of silence after war, of empty chairs at dinner tables, of memories that hurt more than wounds, of hope returning slowly like sunrise after a long night. He closed the file and stared at the ceiling. The next morning, Illyra met him at the observation deck again. "I saw what you did yesterday," she said. "I just stopped a fight." "No, you reminded people that someone still watches over them." He said nothing. Illyra looked at him, serious and soft at the same time. "You may not wear the uniform anymore, but you're still a warrior. Not because you fight, but because you protect." Talon didn't smile, but his eyes warmed slightly. "I don't know how to be anything else," he said. "Maybe you don't have to change. Maybe you just have to choose where to stand now." They both turned to the stars again, in silence. But this time the silence was not heavy. It was peaceful. And for the first time, Talon wondered if peace didn't mean forgetting the war. Maybe it meant remembering it and choosing to stand for something more. Talon stood in the training hall, alone. The walls were plain, the floor clean. No weapons, no targets, just space. He moved through old drills, slow and steady. His hands remembered every step. His feet landed without sound. His breath was calm. He didn't train to fight anymore. He trained to stay balanced, to stay in control. Behind him, the door slid open. Illyra entered quietly, carrying a small data tablet. She watched him move, her eyes full of curiosity. I didn't know you still trained, she said softly. I never stopped, Talon replied, finishing his movement. He turned to face her. She stepped closer. Why? To stay sharp. There's no enemy here. There's always something waiting in the dark, he said. Delira didn't argue. She handed him the tablet. Council security picked up a signal, she said. A satellite system left over from the war. Human-made, automated defense network. It just activated. Talon's jaw tightened. That system was shut down. Apparently not all of it. What does it target? Anything non-human. Talon took the tablet and scanned the information. His eyes narrowed. This isn't a glitch, he said. This is Ghost Protocol. Elira frowned. What's that? A secret plan, he said. Built in case humanity lost the war. If the final bases fell, these satellites would activate. They were meant to stop any alien ships from taking control of Earth's space. It was a last line of defense. But the war is over. He looked at her. The satellites don't know that. The screen showed a warning. One satellite had already fired a warning shot at a merchant vessel. No deaths, but the message was clear. Leave or be destroyed. We need to disable it, Elira said. Talon nodded. I'll do it. No, she said quickly. It's not your job anymore. It was mine before. I know the codes. I know the systems. And no one else can get close without being vaporized. I'll go with you, she said. He looked at her, surprised. I can speak to the council from there. We can record everything. Prove you're not just a weapon. Talon gave a small nod. Then we leave at dawn. The next day, they boarded a small patrol ship. The station faded behind them as they moved toward deep space. The trip was silent at first until Elira finally spoke. Do you regret anything from the war? Talon didn't answer right away. Yes, he said finally, but not what people think. What then? I regret the promises I made to the ones who didn't survive. Elira looked down. You carry a lot. I carry what they couldn't, he said simply. They reached the satellite field hours later. It was cold space, no planets, no moons, no stations. Just dead machines floating in darkness. One of the satellites glowed with power. A red targeting light scanned space slowly. Talon piloted carefully, his hand steady. If we get too close, Elira warned, it'll see this ship as a threat. Not if I speak first, he said. He connected to the satellite's old system using an encrypted channel. Static filled the speaker, then a robotic voice responded. Unit recognized. Commander Talon Voss. Status: killed in action. Error. Override protocol, Talon said. Authorization code Black Sun 12. There was a pause. Code accepted. State purpose and stand down. War is over. Confirmation required. Talon opened a live feed showing Elira beside him. The satellite scanned her face. Alien species detected. No hostile weapons. Confirmation accepted. Standing by for manual shutdown. Talon sighed in relief. We have to dock, he said. The final switch is inside. They wore light suits and floated toward the satellite. Inside, the core was still active. Wires, old circuits, blinking lights. Talon moved like he'd done this 100 times. Elira followed, careful not to touch anything. He reached the core and placed his hand on the final switch. Before I shut this down, he said, you need to know something. What? There are more of these. Hidden all over old war zones. If one woke up, others might too. Elira's face was tense. Then this is just the beginning. He nodded. Which means I can't be retired yet. She watched him pull the switch. The lights dimmed. The hum of power faded. It was done. Back on the ship, they sat together in silence. Outside the window, stars burned quietly. Elira finally spoke. You risked your life to fix something your people built to protect themselves. Talon didn't respond. That says something. What does it say? That you're not here to destroy. You're here to clean up what others left behind. Talon looked at her. His eyes were tired but strong. I didn't fight to win, he said. I fought so others wouldn't have to. She looked at him for a long time, then she whispered, I'm starting to understand. He didn't answer. He just leaned back, eyes on the stars, because sometimes silence was enough. The station lights were dim when Talon and Elira returned. Their ship docked without ceremony. No welcome, no crowd, just the quiet hum of machines and the faint sound of distant voices. Talon stepped out first. His boots hit the floor like they had a purpose again. Elira followed. her steps softer, but her face more serious than ever. Word of the satellite shutdown had already reached the council. There was no praise, no medal, only silence, the kind that meant something was coming. They walked through the main corridor without speaking. Then Elira stopped. "There's something I need to show you," she said. Talon raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "Not here," she said. "Follow me." They took a side lift down to the archives level, deep in the heart of the station. Most people didn't come here. The halls were lined with old records, glowing data columns, and security doors with voice locks. Elira stopped at one of the locked chambers. She scanned her palm and leaned close to the reader. "Elira, Ambassador Code 712, she said. The door hissed open. Inside, the room was small and cold. A single screen lit up in the center. Elira walked over, tapped a few keys, and a series of images appeared. Talon stepped forward slowly. They were old surveillance photos. Some were from battles, others from secret meetings, but one caught his eye. It was him standing in the middle of a battlefield, wounded, alone, surrounded by alien forces. The next image showed something strange, the aliens retreating. He frowned. "This isn't from public records, it's not," Elira said. "This was classified, taken by a neutral observer drone." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because they didn't retreat out of fear," she said. "They retreated because of you." Talon stared at the image. "I don't understand." "You don't know the full story," she said. "Back then, some alien factions believed humans were more than just another species. Some thought you were evolving faster than natural." Talon turned to her, confused. "Evolving how?" "Your kind adapted too quickly. You took tech from every enemy and made it your own. You recovered from losses faster than expected. You used emotion as a weapon. Courage, anger, loyalty. No other species fought like that." Talon said nothing. "They didn't fear your ships," Elira continued. "They feared what you could become." He looked back at the screen. "So they started a war to stop us." "Some did," she said. "Others just followed orders." "And you?" he asked. "I followed truth," Elira said quietly. "And the truth is, you changed the galaxy just by surviving." Talon took a deep breath. His world had always been clear: orders, enemies, allies. But now everything felt more complicated. He stepped back from the screen. "Why show me this now?" "Because something's happening again," she said. "More systems are activating. Not just satellites. Old human bases. Black sites. Hidden weapons. They were supposed to be destroyed after the war." "They weren't," she said. "Some were hidden even from your own command." Talon clenched his fists. "Who activated them?" Elira hesitated, then said, "A human faction. One that believes peace made your people weak. They want to restart the war." Talon's eyes hardened. "Then they're no better than the ones we fought." "They call themselves the Iron Flame," she said. "And they're growing." He stepped forward. "Tell me where they are." "We don't know yet," she said. "But we have one lead, a contact." "He asked for you by name." Talon narrowed his eyes. "Name." "Arik Dane," she said. Talon froze. Arik Dane had been his second in command. A brother in war. Thought to be dead in the final siege. But if he was alive. "This changes everything," Talon said. "I know," Elira replied. He turned to leave. "Prepare the ship." "Now?" "Yes, if Arik is behind this, I need to see him myself." Elira grabbed his arm gently. "Are you sure?" "You said yourself, you're not a commander anymore." He looked into her eyes. "I'm not, but I'm still a warrior." She didn't argue. She just nodded. That night, before departure, Talon stood once more at the edge of the observation deck. Elira joined him, quiet as always. "You never told me what you said to the aliens that day," she asked. "What day?" "In that photo." "The day they retreated," Talon thought back. The memory was blurry, filled with blood and fire, but he remembered standing tall even while wounded. He remembered looking at the enemy lines and speaking, though no one was close enough to hear. "I didn't say much," he said. "Just 3 words." Elira waited. "I said, 'I'm still here.' And sometimes, in war or peace, those words were enough to shake an army." The stars stretched endlessly as the ship moved through deep space. Talon stood near the front window, his arms crossed, his eyes fixed on the dark void ahead. His mind wasn't calm. It raced with thoughts of Arik Dane, his old brother-in-arms, once loyal, now possibly a traitor. Elira sat behind him, reading the file again. "It wasn't D. he tailed. Just coordinates, a name, and a warning. Approach with caution. Iron flame activity confirmed. The silence inside the ship was thick. You haven't spoken since we left, Elira said gently. I'm thinking, Talon replied. About Arik? Yes. She stood and moved closer. What was he like? Talon didn't turn. Brave, loyal, always the first to charge into danger. He saved my life more than once. I thought he died with honor now. I don't know what to believe. Elira placed a hand on his shoulder. Sometimes war doesn't break the body when it breaks the soul. Talon finally looked at her. And what if his soul chose the wrong side? Then you remind him who he was. The ship reached orbit around a barren moon. The surface below was gray and cracked, with one small structure showing life. A hidden base, half buried, giving off low heat signals. This is the place, Elira confirmed. Talon geared up. Not for war, but just in case. He carried no rifle, only a sidearm and a small stun blade. He didn't want to fight, but he would if he had to. They landed on the moon without trouble. The base's entrance was old, but still functional. Talon entered first with Elira close behind. The air inside was stale, but breathable. Lights flickered on. A voice echoed through a speaker. Talon Voss, it said. You actually came. Talon froze. Arik. A moment later, a steel door opened, and there he was. Arik Dane stood tall, his hair grayer than before, his face marked with scars. He wore no uniform and only dark clothes with a symbol on the chest, a burning flame. You're alive, Talon said. So are you, Arik replied. Barely. They stared at each other. Brothers once. Now strangers. Elira stepped forward, cautious. We came to talk. Arik's eyes narrowed. Who's this? A friend, Talon said. An ally. A politician, Arik scoffed. I should have guessed. Talon stayed calm. Why did you call me? Arik smiled faintly. Because I knew you'd come. You always do the right thing. Then why are you doing the wrong one? Arik turned and walked deeper into the base. Come, I'll show you. They followed him into a large room. Screens lit up showing maps, ship routes, satellite networks. This galaxy forgot what we sacrificed, Arik said. The peace is a lie. The council talks and debates while our people starve on broken colonies. There are better ways to help them, Elira said. Arik ignored her. They left us behind, Talon, the soldiers. The warriors, the ones who bled for every inch of freedom. Now we're just memories. Talon stepped forward. So your answer is war again? No, Arik said. My answer is control. If they won't listen to us, we make them. That's not strength, Talon replied. That's fear. Arik looked him in the eye. Tell me you haven't felt it. That rage when you see good people forgotten. You trained to fight. So did I. We were built for this. I was built to protect, Talon said. Not to rule. Arik's voice rose. We gave everything. And what did we get? Empty honors? Broken promises? I'm done begging for peace. Talon's face was calm, but his voice was firm. You're not fighting for justice. You're hiding from pain. A long silence filled the room. Then Arik spoke quietly. You won't join me, will you? No. Then you're in my way. Before Talon could reply, alarms blared. Outside the base, 2 iron flame ships landed, heavily armed. Elira turned to Talon. They followed us. Arik's voice hardened. I called them. I wanted them to see what happens when a hero chooses the wrong side. Talon moved fast. He pulled Elira behind cover as the doors exploded open. Soldiers in red armor rushed in, shouting commands. Talon didn't fire. He used shadows, cover, and silence. Disarmed one. Stunned another. His body moved like it remembered everything. He didn't kill. He didn't need to. Elira activated a signal beacon. We need extraction. Outside, one of the ships burst into flames. Backup from the station had arrived. Late, but just in time. Talon reached Arik, who now stood alone in the command room. You can still walk away, Talon said. Arik raised his weapon, shaking. And live like a forgotten ghost? No, Talon said. Live like a man who remembered who he was. Arik's hand trembled, then he dropped the weapon. Tears filled his eyes. And for the first time in years, Arik Dane lowered his head, not in defeat but in grief. Talon walked toward him, slow and steady. You're not alone, he said. Not anymore. Outside, the battle was over. Inside, a different kind of war had ended, the one inside a man's heart. The medical bay was quiet. Only the soft beeping of machines broke the silence. Arik lay on the bed, his face pale, eyes closed, breathing slow but steady. Talon sat beside him, unmoving, watching the man he once called brother. The battle was over. The Iron Flame soldiers had either fled or surrendered. The base was secure, but something in Talon didn't feel like victory. Elira stood at the far end of the room, speaking with a station officer. She kept her voice low, but her eyes kept glancing toward Talon. She knew something had shifted, not just in the mission, but in him. After the officer left, Elira walked over. She didn't speak at first, just stood beside Talon, looking at Arik. "He'll live," she said quietly. Talon gave a slight nod. "That's something. You saved him." "I tried to remind him who he was, and what about you?" Elira asked. He looked at her. "What do you mean? You remind everyone who they are? You carry their pain, their memories, their guilt. But who reminds you who you are?" Talon didn't answer. "You're more than a warrior," she said softly. "You just don't see it yet." He stood up and walked toward the window. The stars outside hadn't changed, but something inside him had. "I've lived too long on battlefields," he said. "When the war ended, I thought I had no place left." "But you did have a place," she replied. "You just didn't believe you deserved it." Talon turned around slowly. His voice was low. "You once asked me something about love." Elira nodded, remembering that moment, so quiet, so personal. "I told you I was a warrior," he said, "because I thought that was all I was." "And now?" she asked. He looked at her for a long time. "I don't know what I am," he said, "but maybe I want to find out." Elira stepped closer. "You don't have to find out alone." Before either of them could say more, the intercom beeped. "Ambassador Elira and Commander Voss, report to the council chamber." They exchanged a look. Duty still called. The council chamber was large and cold, filled with high-ranking officials, human and alien. Their faces were unreadable. Some respected Talon, others feared him. A few still saw him as a symbol of the past, a ghost of war. Elira stood straight, calm and firm. Talon stood beside her, silent but present. One of the council members, and a tall, gray-skinned alien, I spoke first. "Commander Voss, you went against orders and entered a restricted zone." "I did," Talon replied without hesitation. "You activated old war systems. You engaged with a known rebel." "I did." "You also prevented a large-scale conflict," another council member added, "and brought a key leader of the Iron Flame into custody." Talon said nothing. The first member continued. "Some say you are a risk. Others say you are a necessary weapon." Talon finally spoke. "I'm not a weapon. Not anymore." The room went silent. Elira stepped forward. "Talon Voss prevented a civil war, not by killing, but by understanding, by remembering the man who was lost. We don't need more weapons. We need people like him." There was murmuring, whispers, quiet debate. After a long pause, the decision was given. "Talon Voss, you will not be punished. Your service is acknowledged, but your future will be watched closely." Talon gave a short nod. "Understood." The council turned to Elira. "As for you, Ambassador, your actions were bold, risky, and effective. You've earned our trust. You may continue as liaison between post-war veterans and the council." She nodded with quiet pride. Later, they stood in the hallway away from the noise. Talon looked at Elira. "You spoke for me in there." She smiled gently. "Someone had to." He looked away. "I'm not used to that." "You'll get used to it," she said. They began walking side by side. "So what happens now?" he asked. "I go back to the station. Keep working on peace." "And you?" He stopped. "And me?" She turned to him. "You could stay. Help others like Arik, or find something new. Or just take a break." Talon chuckled softly. "Warriors don't take breaks," she smiled. "Maybe it's time they learned." He nodded slowly. "Maybe." They reached the docking bay. Another ship was waiting. This time not for a mission, just a transport. Talon turned to her again. "Do you still want an answer?" he asked. "An answer to what?" "That question you once asked." She looked at him, eyes soft. "Yes." He took a breath. "I don't know if I can love the way others do. I don't know if I can be who you need." She stepped closer. "I didn't ask for perfect. I asked if you could try. He looked at her. And this time, he didn't speak like a warrior. He spoke like a man finding his way. I can try. She smiled. And for the first time in a long time, Talon Voss felt like something other than a weapon. The sky above Earth was clear. Talon stood on the cliffside, watching the wind move through the green hills. Below, a peaceful valley stretched out. No battles, no orders, no warships. Just silence, and the kind he had never known during the years of war. He had returned after months of travel. Not because of duty, not because of a mission, but because something inside him had changed. Behind him, the soft sound of footsteps came closer. Elira approached, carrying a small bag over her shoulder. She was dressed simply. No ambassador robes, no official markings, just herself. You found the place, she said with a smile. Talon nodded. It's quiet here. That's rare for you. I'm learning to like it. She stood beside him, breathing in the fresh air. I didn't think you'd stay after everything, she said. I almost didn't, he replied. But then I realized I've spent so many years fighting, always waiting for the next enemy, the next order. I forgot what it meant to live. And now I want to remember. They sat on a nearby bench made of stone and old wood. It looked like it had been there for years, weathered but still strong. Like him. Elira opened her bag and pulled out a small hollow device. With a tap, it showed a star map. These are the recovery zones, she explained. Old veterans, abandoned colonies, people left behind after the war. They still need help. Talon studied the map. Are you building a team? He asked. She smiled. I was hoping you'd ask. He nodded slowly. I don't want to lead soldiers anymore. But maybe I can lead people toward something better. No weapons, she said. No killing. He agreed. They both laughed quietly. It felt strange but good, the sound of two people slowly healing. For a long while, they said nothing. Just sat there watching the birds glide through the sky. Then Talon asked, Do you ever think about what comes next? After all this? All the time, Elira replied. Peace is hard. It's not as loud as war, but it matters more. He looked at her. You helped me believe that, he said. She met his eyes. And you reminded me that even warriors can change. He smiled. A real one, not the tired kind he wore during war. In the distance, a small village was visible. Children played near a stream. Farmers worked the land. No one recognized Talon, no one saluted. And that was the best part. Here, he wasn't a commander. He wasn't a weapon. He was just a man, and he liked that. Later in the day, they walked into the village. People greeted them kindly. A baker offered fresh bread. An old woman gave Elira a flower. A small boy pointed at Talon's old combat boots and said, You look like a space hero. Talon knelt down smiling. I used to be. But now I just help people. The boy grinned. That's even better. As they walked away, Elira looked at him. You're different. I feel different. Good different. He looked around. The sky, the people, the sound of laughter. Yes, he said. Good different. That night, they sat by a fire outside a small house the village had offered them. The stars above were bright, scattered like diamonds across the sky. Talon leaned back, relaxed for the first time in years. Elira sat beside him, her eyes on the flames. Do you still hear them? She asked softly. The voices? He asked. The memories? She nodded. He stared into the fire for a long time. Sometimes. But they don't scream anymore. They whisper, like echoes. And now I can finally answer them. What do you say? I tell them it's over. That we're still here. That we made it. She smiled, her eyes wet with quiet emotion. Talon looked at her. When you first asked if I could love you, I didn't understand the question. I thought love was weakness, and now? Now I know. It's the only thing strong enough to bring someone back from war. He reached out, gently taking her hand. I don't have all the answers, he said, but I can try. Not just for you, for myself. Elira squeezed his hand gently. That's all I ever wanted. And there, under the stars, with no flags, no battles, no orders, just two people and the quiet sound of wind, Talon Voss, the warrior who had once been a weapon, began a new life. Not with blood, not with war, but with hope. And this time, he wasn't running from his past, he was walking toward his future.